Now Jeff will be jumped in a minute, but no, I just again really appreciate you doing this. I remember I spent over a year doing research into video game art, and I just kept on seeing your name over and over again. I'm
I
like, oh,
yeah,
yeah,
it was a chunk of work for in the 80s and 90s, that's for sure.
yeah. No, that's awesome. I mean, and honestly, when I, I was trying to look you up to how to contact you. I saw the, your store that you had, and I thought that was awesome because I've always been into. I grew up going to the swap meet and doing all that antique malls. So like,
Yeah.
when I say go like every weekend, with my dad going to the swap meet, buying 10
Oh,
Star
that's
Wars
cool.
figures for a quarter.
That's
So like
cool.
I see right away when I see your thing, I see the Starbucks thing. I'm like, oh, I respect that. It's just like cool stuff. Like,
Yep. I'm one of those guys, definitely. Yep.
yeah, and that's
I used to, sometimes I was able to do conventions, like comic conventions, and where'd you go?
oh, don't worry, I'm here.
Okay. I was able to do comic conventions, and they let me set up with my store stuff. And
Oh, wow.
and every once in a while I'd have a friend or a creator who, I didn't see that often. I only saw them every once in a while at a convention. And they'd come up and they'd look around and they're like, what is this? What are you doing? They knew me as the artist, and they're like, why are you doing this? And I go, because I love it. I just love doing this stuff. And I also knew that I could keep doing that, the collectible stuff and eBay, the rest of my life. I can't keep handling deadlines and stuff like that for the rest of my life.
Well,
But
that's it's so much fun, right? Just finding stuff, what people find at a school, and when you find someone that wants that piece, that you're like, that understands that connection to it.
Absolutely.
Like that's something video games are becoming that way. And it's cool. It's something that's neat. I gotta get Jeff something real quick to get so he can get in here. Let me see.
The video game thing is something I never saw coming. I couldn't imagine actual cartridges and things like that being worth what they're worth now. It was too hard to fathom.
It's funny because I thought 10 years ago I bought my first game that I bought not to play, but like I wanted a sealed copy of a game, and I spent $300, and I remember thinking, I just threw away $300. Like it wasn't an investment. I was just like, this is cool. And like over the last few years, I got more into it. I've been someone that collected comic books for a long time. Like I loved all the Golden Age and Silver Age, and the covers, or just the art to it. I honestly, I'm terrible. I didn't read many comics, but I grew up. My dad brought back a collection of comic books when I was young. I was a kid in a candy shop. You know what I mean? So, it was something special. And growing up with collectibles in the house and just cool stuff, an arcade, a pinball machine was always like, it got me to really enjoy collectibles. And the pandemic, I got to stop working as much, take a little hiatus from my other job, and kind of spend some time in this realm. And that's, when it came to the signature, at first I was looking up artists for a year and really enjoying that. And I got to a point of like, we're doing this new website where people can buy and sell video games and all that. And I was like, well, it'd be really cool if we did something with signatures and stuff. And there's a grading company, but they're too busy right now to really expand anything. So I was like, well, you know what? I'll just do it, without them. So I just spent a lot of money on making plastic cases like this. This one's not mine, but where the cart, we're going to put it in there, lock it in. And it's like, you'll notice I did different quantities, right? Like different quantities of, I gave you. Well, my fun thing with this, I go, we'll just do like whatever game you have, we'll never do another one. Like if you ever want to do it down the road, like, and you'll understand this as a collector, it's like at least from our company, like, when you sign, a Courier Warriors or whatever, or baseball stars, like we'll never ask you to sign one again. That's it. We're done.
So you're gonna advertise these as limited, basically, the signed copies.
Yeah. Like that way, like no one's like, okay, this company is going to release more of them. Cause that's always a thing. Like, I don't want people thinking like, oh, we're going to have you sign 50 every week, so that way it's kind of cool. Now you could sign them whenever you want, but these are just the ones we will release out there just so people feel like they got something special.
And how,
so.
and how are you, explain to me, I mean, believe me, you know far
Yeah.
more than me, especially right now, because it's been,
Mhm.
40 years since I've been working in the video game realm, basically. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I still do work,
Mhm.
actually. It's just different than box covers and things like that. But how did you procure all of these cartridges? How do you,
I
what's
just went on eBay and bought.
really?
Yeah, I just went buying them all. I just thought I had a few rules, was like, hey, make
Wow.
sure that they're a certain condition. Um,
They all look pristine.
yeah, no, I had to, and they weren't, some of them weren't that bad.
Yeah.
Some of them, the thing was, people would usually want, people are like, oh, sealed games. I'm like, I think it's going to be really cool because the cart has your full art on there itself.
Yeah.
So it was a
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
affordable way. Like example, like a game like this is really expensive, but like
Right.
the carts are actually still affordable. So
Right.
you know, that's why I thought this would be fun. And like it's not just you, uh Mike Tyson, we had signed 50 carts, so that's fun because he did
Oh,
the
okay.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out. So
Right.
so like I thought it'd be fun to do these series. So like video games, there's not too much new to collect. So we're trying to give that old sense of old stuff for people to collect, but have that special attachment to
Sure,
the people
sure.
who did important stuff for them.
I love it. I like the way you're thinking, and you're trying to get ahead of the curve a little bit here. And I think, obviously you're trying to turn this into a full-fledged business, I
Mhm.
assume.
Yeah, I mean it's actually like a side project to the other stuff we're doing. To me, like if I could find a thing that I think I would want, I'm like, oh, let's do that. Like it's just fun, and that's, I'm very lucky in life to have a few extra dollars to be able to do stuff like that. Like, hey, let's just do this. It sounds like I
Yeah.
think people will like it. And like luckily, honestly, with stuff like this, if I break out even, I'm happy. Like to me, it's like if someone gets something like say that cart, in a case like this on their shelf and
Right.
they cherish it, that's awesome. Like creating something like that,
Yeah.
very lucky to be able to do, right? And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
well, I mean, I have friends that are artists that I feel bad, like, some of them aren't around anymore. And I want to make sure that people love your art, so I want to make sure that every artist gets like Jeff, who hopefully joins in right now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, he'll tell you the story about baseball stars, and I mean, he has it on his shelf, and I'm trying to, trying to get him in here, but it's something special to him. Like he literally looks at that art, and it means something very special to him, and I think that's,
Yeah.
that's very special.
That's exactly why you remember me guessing that I thought you might have been talking about Dan Maresca, because
Mhm.
baseball stars is near and dear to him too.
Mhm.
And I'm not a guy who played those games. Even back then, I got screenshots and I got descriptions and I did the covers, but
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the games like you guys are. And so there's this part of me going, what is it about baseball stars that's so many people seem to like? What is it about that game? I mean, I don't know, because I never played it.
Yeah, no, I mean that it's funny because it's hard to like most artists did not play the game, right? Most artists, it was as a job that they did in 3 days, 5 days, on to
Yeah,
the next. They might have been working a video game, then a comic, then another
yeah,
commercial piece.
exactly.
So, but it's funny because like I'm like that's okay, no one expect. I don't expect to ask you a single detail from the game. It's just what the art meant, and that's the beauty of art, right? Is that I love video game art because it let the artist kind of have a little bit of fun with their imagination, right? You
Yeah,
weren't expected to copy the storyline 100%. It was like, okay, draw this
no,
baseball thing.
well, yeah, well, especially some of the graphics back then. If we had to stick really, really close,
Oh yeah,
I think the covers would have suffered. I was thankful that they gave me license and leeway to
yeah. Well,
be creative.
that's what I think made that art really special, right? Is like you could tell it was young people having the ability to have fun, right? It was
Yeah,
imagination was being able to be used to enjoy, what. And that's the thing is like a lot of the artists, it wasn't artists that were 60 years old drawing it that never, you could tell as young guys usually, at the time, just hey, here's an idea, and you get to draw this. Okay, what should we do with baseball? Like,
yeah,
or
yeah.
it's just really cool. But
Well,
thank you.
it's the same reason that I appreciate the commission that you and I have,
Yeah.
have set up and talked about, because you're giving me full license to do whatever I want within a certain amount of parameters. But you know, there's a whole lot of people, a lot of art directors do not understand that when you're really restrictive with an artist, you're not necessarily going to get as good a piece of art. And when you give the artist freedom and leeway, you'll always get better stuff every time.
Yeah, and it's funny because that's where I have fun with commissions. Like, to me, it's something that it's a personal experience with an artist to, kind of, hey, this is something special. It's not that I've never done recreations. I've done those before, but when able to do something new, and it's one of just a fun experience, and really highlights that.
Yeah.
It's special. Jeff, I think's in here. I don't.
Yeah, I
you're
saw
right,
him.
Jeff.
You guys
I
see me?
saw him for a second. There he is. There he is.
You guys.
There he is in Sega headquarters.
Yes, Sega headquarters.
Yeah. And my thing is how to make it so all three of us on the screen at once. I don't know, but as long as you guys can see everyone, that's cool.
No, I'm seeing whoever's speaking. That's who.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me fix that setting then.
Let's see if I turn it sideways, maybe. Yeah. Participants 3. Okay. This is another thing. Let's see.
There we go for me. Is yours the same?
No, mine hasn't changed yet.
Okay, what you do is you slide it to the right, like your screen.
Oh, I got
Slide
it. There you go.
Slide it to the right.
Yeah.
We're all
Swipe.
learning for the future here.
Slide it to the whole screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, just swipe to the left.
Swipe. Yeah.
Oh, to the left. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Nothing's happening.
Really?
Nothing's happening. I've got an older iPad, maybe. I don't know.
It's okay. I mean, as long as you can hear us. I mean, your screen's the more important one of the three. So
now, do you think it would make any difference if I turned my iPad horizontally? Would that?
No. Well, it just matters how you want it recorded, but you look fine on our end, I think.
Okay.
Let me see, because maybe no, if I turn it vertical, it does the same thing. Yeah, it's I don't know, you could try turning it sideways, but for me it works either with my iPhone.
Oh, but then I'm not lined up as well.
No, I think the other way is
Get a widescreen view.
I think so. I think the other way was better too.
So, we'll talk a little bit about, first, we just talked a little bit about the project, and, honestly, it's kind of to highlight each title that you did, and, hopefully you enjoy it. So down the road, if you want to do another one, each title, we'll only do one. So Baseball Stars, we will never ask you to do another. So the amount that you sign, that's it, at least for our company, that way each one's numbered, and it creates a special thing for each person. I think, that'll be fun. But with the titles I gave you, is there any specific title that you're like, hey, that one was special to do? Like, you have any memory to?
Well, I definitely have. And again, you guys have to realize for me, it's the artwork, because I didn't play the games. So I'm not basing this on the game at all. Yeah, I had some favorites. Burai Fighter was a favorite. Let's see.
I love the colors you picked on that, yellow and red. It pops.
Yeah. I had fun with that.
Right, Fire's awesome.
I gotta tell you, if I had known that they were going to do a movie of Rampage, I probably would have done a slightly more realistic style than I did. But I can't remember exactly, but that must have been requested at the time. The cartoony nature of what I did, because that wasn't very typical for me back then. And like I said, years later, they go and make a movie, and I'm thinking, darn, I wish I had done that in a completely different style.
Really?
But it's funny because if you did, I don't know if it would have been the same game. It was a video game that's supposed to be kind of a thing. I mean, it was a game first, so that cartoony look was drawn to probably kids. If you would have made it real life, probably would have scared the kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, good point. Like I said, I must have gotten some art direction at the time though to do it in that style because I wouldn't normally do that. You know, I got a big ape and a big lizardy thing, and normally I'm going to want to do something, you know, really cool and fantasy looking, and so yeah, I must have been told to do it in a cartoony fashion, I guess. I'm trying
What
to
was your
remember.
thought when you got a video game job compared to like a comic job? Like, what was your like initial experience? Like, were you excited for a video game job, or was it like, okay, this is more of a paycheck for the video game job? It's, you know, of course it's a job at, you know, at the end of the day, at the time.
Yeah, I think for me, it fell somewhere in between back then, and here's the reason why. Most of the time, there were hellacious deadlines. I mean, ridiculous deadlines. It was always, we need this yesterday, all the time. And I am someone who likes to take my time and do as good a job as I can. But when you're working commercially, you know, you don't always have that ability to do that. So when I had more time and when the subject matter was more fun, I enjoyed it a lot more. When it wasn't subject matter I was thrilled about and the deadline was just crazy, it was more of a paycheck, you know. And to tell you the truth, I would say the biggest example of those was I was also doing cabinet art at the same time. I was doing box cover art, and it's not that there's not cabinet art that I'm not proud of, but there's an awful lot of cabinet art out there that just makes me cringe that I did. And it has to do with how quickly it had to be done, you know. And so I'll tell you, when it comes to cabinet stuff, I don't think I had another Street Fighter game in me. I think I did so much of that.
Oh, really?
I did so much of that stuff that I got tired of it after a while. And then I even started thinking about just the whole aspect of you know, the violence in the game, and I started thinking about stuff like that, going, do I want to do more of this kind of stuff as opposed to, you know, something a little more kinder, gentler, you know what I mean? And early on I didn't even think about that stuff, but later on, when I had done so much of it, it really made me pause after a while, and I thought, you know, I don't think I need to do another Street Fighter game.
Can I just say, the Rampage artwork, to me, like, that's iconic. When I think of that game, even though I played it in the arcade, I think of the NES cover, the Nintendo box art cover still. I love it. I met Brian F. Collin several times. Yes, that one right there.
With the signature down there now. See the little
That's beautiful.
The white ink worked out really well.
You picked a good color.
Yeah, the white ink is working out really well. So yeah, that's what I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh no, I was saying I met Brian F. Collin. He's the designer of the game. And he would do a lot of signings in the Chicagoland area where I live. And yeah, he's a great guy too. And I have some of he did some sketches too of the characters, and he signed some of those for me and personalized them. He's a really good guy. I'm not sure if you're aware of him.
You know, what I was going to say that I wanted to get more of an education from you guys about.
Oh yeah,
is conventions in general. How much of a thing is that becoming regarding video games? I mean, because, you know, I've done comic conventions forever. I've done science fiction conventions. I've done all sorts. I've done book fairs. I've done all sorts of stuff. I don't know. I'm assuming that it's probably starting to get pretty hot as far as conventions for video game collectors. I mean, where's that at?
Most definitely. So I've been on the convention circuit for years now. I mostly did it in Chicago area, and the big one was the Midwest Gaming Classic. But there is probably a half dozen, the ones that are considered like national, like Portland Retro Gaming Expo, Midwest Gaming Classic. There's a few others, but it's big. You go to those big 3-day conventions, and there's a lot of artists showing up now, and they're signing stuff that people are really excited about.
Well, that's cool. Well, hopefully that's something I'll gradually maybe get into a little bit as I ease into my semi-retirement years. You know, I'll have more time.
Yeah.
I'll be able to do stuff like that.
I'd love to see that.
It's interesting because video game artists have not in the past been highlighted, and it's crazy because a lot of us love the art as we love comic book art, right? You know,
Right.
That's where something like this, to me, like this series Signature series, is kind of like a homage to the artist to bring awareness, you know. And you know, looking at the list of games you did, it's shocking that, you know, when I see a list like that, I'm like, wow, you know, that was one of the few artists that did a library of Nintendo games at the early days, and that's not common. You know, there's only a few artists that did that, and I think it's really cool, and it deserves some recognition. So thank you for doing that. You know,
hey, thank you, man. You're gonna have to be my video game manager, Dan. You know?
I'm like, what shows you want to go to? You want to go to Portland?
Yeah. Exactly.
No,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no, we'll talk after. And you know, it's important to me that, like, I think, like, you know, the legacy of like the work you did in this realm will be recognized more and more every year from here. I know that sounds odd, but say comic books, like the legacy is there. Like you probably feel it already from that. Video games is kind of like, oh, you forgot about that, right? You know,
right. Yeah,
but,
well,
like that artwork, like what Jessica's about to show you right now, he'll explain right now how important it is to him.
So this was my favorite Nintendo game as a child. This is my favorite Nintendo game ever, and it's like, to me, it's like immortalized as, I mean, now, it's this. I love this game so much. I searched forever for a sealed copy. I finally found a sealed copy, and it was like, it was just this journey that took me like 20 years to find one.
Now, and, you got to tell me what it is about the game that made that your favorite game.
This game was, I was really into baseball cards as a kid.
Oh, okay.
This game, it doesn't have the licenses, but they used like player surnames that you knew who they were talking about. Like one of the guys' names in it was the Babe or Willie, you know.
Yeah.
So anyways, this game here was the first game that really captured, like, it had a battery in it, so you could save your progress when you were playing like leagues, and it was just so fluid for the time, because we were coming from Atari, you know, Atari 2600, where it's stick figures basically. Then SNK came out with this game, and it's like these fully realized figures that are just moving in it had everything. It had everything that you could want from a sports baseball game. And they continued the franchise with sequels and stuff. And it's the first one to me is the best one.
That's good to know. That's good to know, because like I said, it's not like I ever went back and did more research on my own about the games. You know, as Dan said, at the time I was a commercial artist, and these were commercial jobs, and I got into them as best I could, you know, with the information that I had, but I did not have the information of like sitting down and playing the game for hours, because there wasn't that kind of time.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a positive in ways, because it let, it really had to make a scene out of the, you know, the one piece of art had to draw someone in to buy it. And the thing for someone like myself or Jeff, you know, you're a kid when you see these. So like, imagine, I'm sure when you're a kid, there's certain stuff like comic books or whatever. When you looked at it the first time, that artwork, you're like, wow, you know what I mean? You can remember that. And that's what, you know, video game artwork, I mean, it hits you, you know, and that cover gives you a whole, you know, world that you feel like you're going into. Like that's just a glimpse. And even though it's not what the game looks like, it's like what it could look like. So you put those characters in your head of how the game on the screen might not look like, but how in your head it looks like.
Well, that's exactly that's what a good cover is supposed to do. You know, in other words, you're supposed to be sitting there playing with those little pixels running around on the screen, but you're imagining them the way the cover looks, you know.
Yeah,
exactly. Those big jacked up baseball players, you know, all of them are.
Exactly.
And that's, you know, that was something about the Nintendo that we didn't have before, where, you know, with Atari, the cover art would be like just totally unrelative to what you were actually playing. But then, when we got the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was a lot closer to what we were seeing on the cover in the games. So my nostalgia for this game is based on that cover art that's there. It's
it's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because let me fast forward you now to the work that I do occasionally, believe it or not, for the same guy that I was doing all these covers for so many years ago. Although he works for like CBS, Paramount, whatever. But on the side, he still has all these contacts with video game manufacturers. So he has come back to me all these years later, and I'm doing more work again for this guy that I did work for 40 years ago. So let me tell you what the work is like now compared to what you see in the old stuff. So now what happens is they have so many files, so many like 3D files, so many Bibles to choose from, that what they generally probably have him do now is he picks and chooses all these figures and the backgrounds and all this stuff, and he puts them together in a Photoshop file, and he sends them to me, and he says, here, can you fix this, make this look better? Basically.
Oh, wow.
So now when I'm working on a video game cover, what I'm working on is all stuff that's there already, and I'm just going in Photoshop, and I'm painting and polishing stuff up, making stuff look better, adding a glow there, a sparkle in that person's eye. That's what I'm doing now, because they don't even start from scratch anymore, because of how the industry has changed. Everything's so realistic, everything's all 3D. So they don't need me to do, when I do layouts, what I do layouts for them with are their files. In other words, the last thing I did was a Hotel Transylvania game. And basically, they just give me all the 3D files of all these characters and stuff, and I get to arrange them together, and I'll put together a design. And there's certainly an art in that, but I don't have to worry about rendering out drawing these characters from scratch. I render them out, but they're all there. They're all there already. The poses, everything.
I'm sure it's a lot less messy with the paint.
It's less messy, and it's much less creative. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Because there's very little I can do except add to the design. I can add to how it looks on the page, and how big this character is versus the mansion in the background. But aside from that, how it looks, I don't have any control over at all anymore. Right. So
yeah, I can see how with a game like that's already based on a movie, an animated movie,
right?
There's not much you could do.
Right.
You have to stick to the, what it is.
Yeah, and they want it to look exactly like their characters, and the way they get people to do that is, here, just use our files, and then we'll be sure it'll look like our stuff, because it's our stuff. That's basically what they do. So
I think that speaks a lot to this old video game art, being, a lost art form now.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I would agree.
So that's where I always look at, I try to imagine someone like yourself being, being a young man and given this project of okay, I get to draw baseball in a kind of a fun way, or there's a war, a war scene, or Carry Warriors or Rampage. It's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of fun in those pictures. And I think it comes from imagination. Not knowing all that stuff sometimes I think led to some of the best art, because you weren't worried about what it looked like in the game. You're like, I get to just draw a tower with these big creatures on it, just messing shit up.
Yeah, I would have had much more of a problem with it if I had to make it look like the characters in the game. That would have been an issue with me, definitely.
Yeah, no, that's what it's just such a, and also the what was your medium during the time? Was it mostly
it's pretty much everything is watercolor and or sometimes a little bit of acrylic, and then touched up with like Prismacolor pencils.
Mhm.
You basically you need to use media that you can move fast with. I can't sit there and do it in oil. Well, you could do oil paints, but it just takes too long, for the stuff to dry. So you gotta use stuff that's quick. You gotta use stuff that's quick, basically. So most of it is watercolor. Like I start with basically a pen and ink illustration, watercolor over the top of that, and then maybe use some acrylics, and then touch up with pencils for highlights.
Awesome.
I can definitely see that in Baseball Stars. I'm like looking at it while you're describing it. I'm just like,
Here. Yeah, well, that's definitely, that one's less painterly and a little bit more, illustration, like as far as line art goes.
Yeah. But you can see like the crowd and stuff. I don't know if you have a copy of the art.
I do. I'm looking at one.
It's and I love how the baseball is just like flying out of the box.
Oh yeah. You're such a fan. I'm gonna have to. I had a video game fan do they had me do a recreation of it. I'm gonna have to send you a copy of that.
Dude, you're killing me, man. That would be.
So there's a current version of Baseball Stars.
That's awesome.
So I'll make sure I'll get contact information or whatever from Dan, and I'll make sure I can email it to you or something.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. And I'll share it with everyone else too.
Well, that I'll have to check on, because I don't know if he wants it shared or not. So
okay.
Let me make sure about that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I jotted myself a note to remember that.
I'll chat after about that and make things happen. But yeah, no, I mean, I really appreciate you, taking the time to sign these games. And was there any of the games you didn't remember? You're like, you look at, you're like, I did this?
No.
Okay.
All of
I thought it'd be funny.
No, but you know what? There has been plenty of artwork in my career that I did look at and didn't remember. Just none of these box covers. I remembered all of these, but I've picked up something or found something in a flat file, that was put away 35 years ago, and I take it out and I look at it and I see it and I go, I drew this. I can tell this is my style, but I have no recollection whatsoever of drawing this. So that just means I had too many deadlines that week. I mean, it's just they had to come out so quick. Sometimes convention sketches, which by the way, sorry to disappoint you, but I've stopped doing because I got to the point where I could not enjoy sitting there talking to people at a convention because I was just busy the whole time, as you see a lot of artists are, because they're taking commissions and they're doing sketches. I don't do that anymore because I want to enjoy talking to the fans and being able to not have that deadline pressure of like, oh, I got to get 6 of these things done by the end of the day. I do that for my day job. I don't want to go do that at a convention too, So I bring as much art as I can. I bring sketches. I bring things that I can sell if people want stuff like that. But I don't do any sketching at conventions anymore because of that.
Yeah.
With your art today, I mean, are you enjoying the art today that you're doing? How's that going for you?
Absolutely, because I'm doing a lot more of the art for myself. And when it comes to like doing limited edition prints, things like that. I'll just, once or twice a year, I'll do like a new piece that's like I'll do it as a small print, and I just do it for me and for sales of prints. And it's not for an art director, it's not for a client. So yeah, I'm enjoying that stuff a hell of a lot more. It's the kind of stuff I do if I was just doing sort of my own fine art, basically, as opposed to something else. The other thing is I do less of it, a lot less of it. The main thing that I think I've told you that I'm working on commercially right now is a 6-issue comic called Becoming Frankenstein. And that I was, even though someone else technically wrote it and came up with the idea, I was given great leeway and flexibility with where I could take it. And as a matter of fact, by the last 2 issues, I ended up sort of taking over the writing too.
Oh, wow.
So it became more and more and more of mine, basically. And I have high hopes for that in terms of there's going to be at least a sequel in terms of a graphic novel after the 6 issues, and this guy is already supposedly talking to Netflix about the possibility of a
Oh,
series.
wow.
So
That's awesome.
so yeah, I got my fingers crossed on that one.
That
I was
sounds
gonna
like a really
mention-
fun thing.
Yeah, it's, you know, the idea is what roped me in. He contacted me, and he was having trouble with somebody else who had started the project, I guess, and they ran into all sorts of problems with this guy, and so he came to me to sort of see if I wanted to, you know, kind of pull this one out of the fire. And he described the project to me this way. You know, I knew it was a Frankenstein project, but I said, God, there's so many. How are you going to do something that's new and original with Frankenstein? And he said, well, this story follows Victor in his early years, and it follows the stories of the 5 people that end up becoming the body parts.
Wow.
Of the monster.
That's awesome.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And I thought, hey, nobody's done that story before. You know, that's a new angle. So
Like an
that's
origin.
that's what got me interested. That's what got me interested in it. You know, it's just another version of how to come at it. And originally, this guy didn't even have the monster as a big part of the story. And I just said to him, you know, look, you cannot have a comic book called Becoming Frankenstein and not have scenes with the monster in it. I said, people are going to pick up that book. They want to see the monster. I said, so will you let me do flash forwards so that we can see in the future, you know, we'll tie in this scene from the past into something that's going on in the future with the creature, basically. And he begrudgingly let me do that, but everybody's been thrilled about that. And since then, the publisher's gotten on board. He's working on action figures. I've seen a bust has been sculpted. The stuff looks great. I'm like, what are you doing? I thought you didn't want the monster in all of a sudden you're doing all these monster projects. And he's like, well, everybody's all about the monster, you know. And I go, well, that's what I tried to tell you. That's what I tried to tell you. I mean, trust me, you know, of course it's about the monster when the title is Frankenstein, you know. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked about that project, and I hope it's got legs as far as, you know, beyond the comics. So we'll see. We'll see.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna mention before I forgot. I probably should mention afterwards. But if you ever want to do a print, I have a large format printer in our office. Just because the first project I was doing was limited prints for artists, but the problem was running into the licensing from the companies, right? You know, you getting the permission from the artist, but if it's an old game, you know, just so they don't end up suing you, you want to get permission. So all the artists were on board, and I realized it was too much headache to cross that bridge before the website rather than after, you know, how companies are. So we'll talk after about that.
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
But
I would definitely. I would say the biggest issue on that for me, if you want to use existing old covers, is getting a good high resolution, you know, image of it. I have some on some, but I don't have the whole catalog, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, and that's the trick sometimes, is having the files and stuff like that. But like the company, no, that's something else. But it's funny because you mentioned doing prints, and we bought a very, very expensive large format. It's amazing how some of these things look. The art, you know, sometimes.
Absolutely. Is it the kind of machine? Is it the kind of machine you can actually do like G-clays on and stuff like that?
It's what was that again?
It's called a G-clay. It's basically it's really high end paper, and the printing is pretty high end too. But these machines can do that now, and that's And
no, this is like a multi-$1,000 machine that does 20. It does full. I mean, I was blown away. It's Epson Sure Shot 7570, I think.
I think yeah, you have that capability, I think.
Yeah, no, we did. I mean, it's definitely a very high end. It was fun going through the process of like looking at this art. It's not the same as when it looks on how it looks on, you know, it's just blown up can be. So it was interesting to see what these machines can do these days, right? You know, if you have the real files, right? You know, so but no, I mean, so it sounds like you're having fun still, which is awesome. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing I wanted to, you know, before we this thing gets wrapped up, I wanted to mention to you 2 of the things we've been talking about, you know, video games, comics. I wanted to talk about the both of them together. You guys are probably familiar with this, I would think, but there's a few games that I did. There's a few video games that I did comics for.
Mhm.
And one of them was an Atari game called Yar's Revenge.
Oh yeah.
Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that
I didn't
rings
know
a
there was a comic, but
Yeah, there was
is
a
it
little
a
comic.
wait? Is it a Marvel?
No. I don't mean it's a comic that was published by a comic book company. I mean it's a comic that came in with the game. It's a little.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's a small format, but it was a comic book. It was like maybe
I
a
remember
five.
those.
It was like a 5-page thing.
Yeah,
Something-
I remember those packed in the Atari games. I know you're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah. So there was that.
That's awesome.
I remember a game called Rad Gravity.
Yep.
I did a
Yeah, I
comic.
know which one that is. That's an NES game.
I did a comic for that. So there was like, maybe 3 or 4 games that besides the video game or the box cover art, I did like a little comic for.
Well,
Which
that's
is-
awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of
Well,
interesting.
that's like stuff that no one would know unless you tell us. Like that's, you know what I mean?
Or unless they bought the game when they were, back then.
But
Yeah.
did they give you recognition on it, or were sometimes I know they wouldn't
Yeah.
even let people sign? Okay, some
No,
of
they
the covers they didn't even let the artists sign because it's commercial work.
Yeah. No, they did, I think, on the comic. And then the other thing I was going to mention, talking about crossover stuff, the other thing I was going to mention is a lot of people don't realize that sometimes there's occasions where I was able to actually work on game art, on concept work for stuff within the game. And that was things like the best example I have is Mutant League Football.
Oh, nice.
So what happened with Mutant League Football was this: they were well into the game. They were probably a year into the game, and then they contacted me to do a set of trading cards, Mutant League Football trading cards. They were inserts in what was the name of that gaming magazine?
Electronic Gaming?
No,
Game Pro.
Game Pro. That's what it was.
There you
Yeah.
go.
So they were inserts in Game Pro. It was 24 cards, full color. That was another hellacious deadline. I remember I had 2 weeks to do 24 full color painted cards, but I really enjoyed the subject matter because of Mutant League Football, right? So I did this set of cards. When I turned the job in and they saw the cards, they decided to redesign a bunch of the characters that they had been working on in the game.
Oh wow.
Because they liked the visuals on the cards so much, and so I got to have a little bit of something to do with actually designing characters in the game for that, which was fun.
That's awesome.
No,
And
that's
then-
crazy.
And then the last thing I'll mention is, are you guys familiar with the fact that I did do a little stint for a couple of years for a game company called Rocket Science Games?
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
I thought maybe you didn't know. Yeah, I was an art director at Rocket Science Games for like probably 18, 19 months kind of thing. And because I was a guy who freelanced my whole life, and I told them when they came to me, I told them, yeah, I don't really want to, I don't really want to come into work. And they're like, well, what if we make it worth your while? And they twisted my arm and they talked me into it. Yeah, there was only a few, kind of horrific products that came out. They were trying to be a synergy between Hollywood and Silicon Valley, and their heart was in the right place, but they didn't quite pull it off. But the only game that came out that was finished that I art directed, had my name on it, was Cadillacs and Dinosaurs. It was a Mark Schultz comic book.
Yeah, that's the game on Sega Genesis too.
Yes, yeah. I art directed that game while I was at Rocket Science.
Oh
And
wow.
the sad thing about that game was when it was conceived, the game was supposed to be 14 levels. And all the cutscenes were going to be filmed live action. They were going to let me direct live actors.
That's awesome.
What happened with the final game? 2 levels, and I had to draw all the cutscenes. So
Wow.
it just completely fell short of what the original aspirations were to start with.
That's so crazy you say that. I literally just bought a sealed copy of that game.
Oh, really?
Like last week. Yeah, it's not even here yet, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
That's the only game I think I have a sealed copy of because I art directed it.
Oh wow,
I
that's
have
so
one.
cool, man.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, those are the stories I just love hearing because it's like it had to be different for you to be in an art director role and to, be in the middle of all that had to be something
Yeah.
else.
Oh, it was great. Well, you know what I found out after the fact, my days at Rocket Science, you know who a coworker was of mine there, but I didn't know it at the time? Elon Musk.
Oh, really?
Wow.
He's
That's
credited. He's credited on that game. If you
Wow.
if you look on the box cover in the back,
Uh-huh.
you will find his name. I think if it's not on the back of the box cover, it's in the credits inside.
Oh,
But
that's
it's
crazy.
and I was
Yeah.
like years later, I was like, what? Elon Musk worked at Rocket Science? I had no idea. I had no
Wow.
idea. I heard he
He's
used to
gonna-
come in. I heard he came in late at night, like 2 o'clock in the morning, and he worked all night or something like that. That's why I never saw him.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out that he's gonna credit you with his greatest inspiration that you didn't know about.
Yeah. I wish. Yeah,
Nah,
I can
That's
say,
crazy.
yeah, come on, look at my career and what's going on with me. What happened to you, Elon? What have you done?
Well, it's funny because I'm thinking about great minds of our time, and Nolan Bushnell was Atari, and his first employee was Steve Jobs, right? Or one of his first employees is Steve, and Wozniak worked there. And to hear you mention that story with Elon Musk, and my video game, for some reason, just has bright minds kind of like flies like around it, so
Yeah,
it was just kind of interesting.
Oh, there's lots of stories. There's lots of stories. My ex-business partner was he basically was the art director up at Lucasfilm.
Oh,
So
wow.
all the games division.
Small job.
Yeah. Well, he was the what's really funny about that is the division was all made up of programmers.
Mhm.
He was the only artist in the group, and so when they looked around needing an art director, they looked at him and they went, "Well, you're an artist, right?" So
Boom.
that's how he got the art director's job. He was the only artist there because
Oh, wow.
that was back in the days when programmers were still doing the art too.
Yeah.
Which is why the games looked the way they did.
Yeah. Like
they were
Maniac
very
Mansion
heavy on
and all those.
Yeah.
Day of the
Yeah.
Tentacle. Yeah.
No, definitely.
Exactly. All that stuff. My wife, Leela, she worked on Day of the Tentacle.
Oh wow.
But it's a very, you know how it is. The business is an incestuous thing. We all know each other, and everybody's worked with everybody else. And
Yeah.
she worked on, I think, Maniac Mansion too.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there were two, as I recall, there were two Day of the Tentacles, right? There was a 1 and 2, I think.
I remember one. I don't know about the sequel. There might have been, or
I'm pretty sure.
I know there was a remake of it too at one point.
I think there was a sequel. There was a 2
Sequel.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
It wouldn't surprise me. A lot of those games did get sequels.
Yeah. And
They're
then
so amazing.
And then since we're in the name dropping portion of our interview here, I'll also
Oh.
mention Steve Purcell. Steve Purcell is a good friend of mine. I don't know if you're familiar with Steve.
I have talked to Steve before.
Yeah, he's at Pixar now, but he was at LucasArts back then. He's Mr. Sam and Max. Yeah, Steve's a good pal. Love his stuff. Funniest guy I know. Absolutely love his work. And yeah, he was one of those early guys back at the LucasArts games days. So there was a lot of connections from back then. Yeah, lots of stuff.
It's awesome.
Well, on a personal note, I have to say, see your stuff on Facebook a lot. I gotta say, I admire. Seems like you're very much a family man, and that's great stuff. It looks like you enjoy life. More than just all this, which is really important.
Absolutely. And more so every day. You know what I mean? It's like the work stuff is dwindling.
Yeah.
And life and family and retirement and fun is getting more and more of space, which is how it should be.
It should be, right? I mean, that's great. That's what I like to hear. Now, do you want to show us a few of the games? I most people don't even know which games you were signing, so I figured it'd be good to show a few of the titles.
Oh, sure, no problem. So there's Burr-Eye Fighter. There's the signature.
Beautiful. I love the colors on that. That just pops.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That dragon's awesome.
There's an Alpha Mission.
Oh yeah.
There's a signature. Let me get it back. There we go.
That's so cool.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm so glad the white ink ended up working. I sent away for some pens, but I also went to a local art store, and it turns out the pens I sent away for weren't going to work, and the stuff I picked up at the local art store did. So there is a tag team wrestling.
I had that
I
one.
have to figure out what
kid.
pen you use. That looks gorgeous.
That is look gorgeous.
Pops. Because like you said, the metallic pens just don't do it right.
Yeah, well, they're trouble. This actually kind of works a little bit like the metallic pens, unfortunately. And the other thing I'm concerned about is, I mean, it looks like it's going to be fine, but you know how all the carts are stacked in the boxes when you send them? I'm sending them back the same way.
Yeah.
I'm hoping there's not going to be, rubbing.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can take the time to like put a piece of something between every single one.
It'll be fine. They're so stacked together that
I think it'll be okay. Let's see. I showed you Rampage already. I showed you Baseball Stars. I don't know what else I have around the table here.
That's fine. I think it was just really nice to see those. I love the pen you picked out, and I'm glad that each one of those titles I thought were kind of were just awesome. There's a Curio Warriors, that's the other one, but we don't need to see it. I just was trying to remember in my head what I sent over. But no, I'm glad that you're able to take this time. I really appreciate it, because I mean, again, you were an influential part on the early video game art. I mean, that's where it really comes back to, is like video games is going to be an art form in total for the rest of our lives. I think for the next few hundred years. I mean, for always. So it's so interesting to see, the art direction, how it was. And to me, like, that art's my favorite art of all time, like, just hands down.
Believe me, had I known what was going to happen with the video game industry in terms of how the stuff is blown up art wise and everything else, I sure wish I would have kept a couple of those covers. But I mean, I sold everything as I went along. I was doing conventions and I sold them as I went. And now the value on the stuff is just unbelievable. So hopefully, through prints or conventions or something else, maybe I can still get in on a little bit of this tail end of the stuff.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen any of your art since then, like out and about? Like, oh, you remember that person? Like, I thought it'd be cool if like you saw that in a frame. Yeah, online.
Only online. Yeah.
At least it survived. I think that's the important thing, is that it's out there somewhere.
And then
someone take care of it.
And then recently, actually, it was when I started doing research on my own stuff in preparation for your commission. I started, Googling and searching, and I come across, I think it was I'm pretty sure it was a blog, might have been a regular website. I can't remember if it was a website or a blog, but it was dedicated to my covers. And this guy had listed like 10 or 12 of my covers, and he was listing the prices he was willing to pay for them. And I was just like, oh God, I wish I still had it.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He knew that I didn't have them anymore. As I said, all you guys know more than I do as far as what's going on, with the stuff. And he knew that I no longer had any originals, that they're all they're out there now. And he's got to get them from other collectors. And and he was offering just
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Well, it's great that your work's recognized like that, right? That it's important, right? Some artists work their whole lives and don't, none of their art, ever sticks. So I'm glad to see that that there's people out there willing to put bounties on those, and
That's an interesting way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I just like, what I mean, I've known quite a few artists in time, and to be able to have work that is desired later is I think a great credit to your abilities, what you did, so yeah.
I was just being a journeyman worker at the time, and doing my job and getting the stuff done. So yeah, it is nice, and I certainly don't take it for granted. I'll tell you that. I appreciate that people appreciate what I did. And the other thing I was going to say about that was, I used to think comic book fans were just amazing as far as never forgetting. They still, when I'm at a convention, they'll bring a book that's again 40 years old to have me sign, and I go, wow, you guys are amazing. Well, the video game people have them beat, hands down, in terms of the never forgetting part.
Yeah.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
That game Tag Team Wrestling. I remember buying that game. I was with my dad at Kmart back in whenever it came out, like 87 or 88.
Mhm.
And I loved wrestling at the time, and I bought it based on the cover art. And
cool.
fortunately, when I got it home, the game was not that great, but the cover art is what sold me.
Yeah. Well,
that gives you an
you know what?
idea.
That's the highest compliment I can get. I always appreciate when I hear something like that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very
Thank you,
much.
man. You're
So
welcome.
you
and
did
let
your
me-
job. You sold
And
the
before
game.
I forget, if you do end up checking out Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, I apologize for the game itself. I had very little to do with the game itself. I directed all the cutscenes. It's all my artwork and the cutscenes. That's pretty much what I did on the game. The game itself is handled by programmers for the most part. So don't pin the game on me.
I got you, man. I won't.
Last thing,
I know
Frank, is,
from Tag Team Wrestling not to.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, last thing I'll say, Frank, if you're ever down the Grapevine on Santa Cruz, you should stop by the office.
Sure.
What I'd love to do is one thing, show you the office, show you the printer stuff, but I'd love to set up one of these games and have you play one of these games just because it's kind of funny.
just so you can
like,
get a good
damn, this
laugh.
controller,
You just want a good laugh, Dan. That's
yes, I do. No, but you're out in California. That's why I mentioned the Grapevine. So if you ever heading out to LA, it's right
Absolutely.
outside. But always thank you, Frank, for your time, your contributions, and
All right.
everything. Thank you, Jeff.
Take care.
Thank you, Frank.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
But
and, I'll like I said, I'll do some research and hopefully get that new version of Baseball Stars to you.
Oh my God, you, man. That'd be so. Oh my God. Yeah, we'll be in contact.
All right, sounds good.
But
Awesome.
people that don't know, the cards, we're waiting for encapsulation. They'll probably be available beginning of at the end of the year, hopefully by the Christmas thing. And thanks for watching.